All right, guys, Dennis and Casper here with Submission Radio, brought to you by Musashi, ahead of UFC 229 with the legend himself, Dominick Cruz. Dominick, before we get into the exciting fights from this card, obviously we notice you come to these events with your notepad and you really take a lot of time to just listen to what the fighters are saying, see sort of how they're feeling. Tell us a little bit about your concept behind doing that. When did you first sort of decide, all right, this is what I'm going to do? Because you don't have to do this. I mean, you could just show up, you could get the notes, you could do your own research from home. What makes you want to come out and really be a part of this thing?
Well, it's a couple things. One, if I'm going to do something right, I'm going to do it right. Like, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it right, excuse me. So I just had something in the back of my head that said, if I'm not talking to these fighters, how do I really know what they're actually thinking when they get in there? You can find out a lot of emotions when you sit and face these guys on this day. It's before weigh-ins. They're very nervous. A lot of them aren't used to having the cameras in front of them. Some are. The ones that are, you know they're going to do better. The ones that aren't, you know they're going to be a little freaked out in front of the bright lights. You can make a read there. I mean, there's just so many reads here. And throughout my entire career, I've fought, and I've had people explaining what I'm doing out there in the octagon, and they just have no clue what I'm doing. They just literally haven't had any idea. And I gathered that maybe part of the reason is you never sat down and asked me. And I'm a professional athlete at the highest level. I put 12 weeks of time together to build this specific style for each specific opponent. And I do it to put my body on the line for the fans and for the media and for everybody in the world, including myself. So how hard is it for me to come for 2 hours and come and ask these fighters what they've gone through, what they're feeling, how they're feeling, what they want to give to the world, what they want to give to their fans, if there's a message they want to give them other than them punching somebody in the face for 15 minutes, because that is their one stage. As a fighter, this is all we got. We're prize fighters. You have one stage, 15 minutes if you're lucky, if you go the distance. And if you're even luckier, you only last 1 minute because you knocked them out quick. But now how long do fans get to know you? Well, I feel like part of this process is that. Part of my job is to put that out to the fans, have the fans understand. And it's not about me. It's not for me. It's for them. And just from the things that I've noticed in my life, if I stop being so selfish, stop focusing on myself all the time, amazing things start happening for you because you're outward focused and you're worrying on building other people and helping other people. And this sport is my focus, and these athletes who, even though I might fight some of them and even though I might not get along with all of them, I know and respect what they do and what they put their bodies through to put a show on. So I'm here for them.
What is it like when you encounter a fighter and you got to do your duties, you got to interview them and you find out the facts, but maybe you guys aren't on the best terms? Do you find a little bit of resistance? Do you find it's a bit of a dynamic, and how do you sort of get over that?
Well, yeah, I mean,
It's on
them. It's on them. If I'm going to go up and interview you, and if you don't like me, I'm going to know pretty quick. And that's on you. Then I won't say anything that I mean, you're not going to get anything out of me. So if you don't want to tell me anything, then no, you're not going to hear anything, and you can just have it how you've always had it, where nobody knows you or what you're doing, or you generate no sales because you have no platform or no name or no personality. Or let that out. If you let that out to me, I'll give it to the people for you. And then you're not just some zombie in there smashing people. People can actually get to know you. And so, I mean, if you don't like me, okay. It doesn't affect me. That's on you.
A couple of big fights happening, a lot of great fights, but a couple of really big fights happening this weekend. What did you make of Tony Ferguson? Obviously, a couple of days ago, he did the media scrum. Some of us were surprised at his composure. Today, he was happy. He was sort of talking to the media, giving everyone shout-outs, lifting up his shirt, showing off his abs. What did you make of his composure? And how do you look at this matchup between him and Anthony Pettis?
Well, how I see the matchup is it's my next favorite fight on the card, so I'm just ecstatic for it, and I'm honored to be able to call these fights for this level of athlete. But as for Tony and his performance today for the media, I think he's just having fun. That's where he needs to be a scary guy. When Tony's having fun and I heard it in the questions. I don't worry about technique. Then you overthink it. His safety zone is his cardio, his work ethic, his power, and his mindset in the fact that I am inhuman. It doesn't matter what technique you have. I'm too strong, I'm too fast, I'm in too good a shape. I'm not human, I'm too strong-minded for you, no matter what your technique is, to break me. And that's where he finds his comfort. And then he takes that mindset, which is just pure grit, and he sprinkles a little comedy on it and a little bit of fun so that he can calm himself down. That's what I see from it. He's just lightening up, trying to enjoy it, but he definitely knows that he's going to have to go to a dark, dark place to let himself out of a box in order to beat somebody like Anthony Pettis.
Where do you see the majority of that fight taking place? Because from a stylistic perspective, they're both very, very interesting but very different strikers. And grappling-wise, they're both very, very good in terms of what they do as well. Where do you sort of see this one taking place for the most part?
It's going to be, I think it kind of has to be just a big, you ever seen the cartoons where they get into a scuffle and all you see is a ball of dust?
Tasmanian devil.
It kind of has to be that way for Ferguson, because it doesn't benefit him to ever in any fight in the history of Tony Ferguson to stay on the outside and be like, okay, I'm ready to set up this perfect right hand. No, Tony Ferguson is pure offense and pure aggression, which creates his defense. So he doesn't really need as much defense because he's always throwing something. And then if he gets clipped in between it because his defense isn't necessarily on point, he's still hitting you. So he's still being defensive in some odd way with his offense. And so that's his gift. As for Anthony Pettis, he's got a gift of the technique and being able to adjust and flow and fill in gaps. So right now what I'm seeing from him that's different from before is he was just wrestling or just striking. And now what you're seeing from Pettis is he's striking until you make a move on him, and then he makes the adjustment. If you start wrestling, he's looking for submissions. Once you start defending the submission, he goes back to wrestling to get away and start kickboxing again. So he's filling in gaps. So the question is, can Anthony Pettis fill in enough gaps of the non-stop aggressive offense of Tony Ferguson, find that in between, and be able to get that finish through the process?
Another fascinating storyline here is that Tony said he might be a backup to the main event if anything happened to a Khabib or a Conor McGregor. What's your perspective on having backups as a former champion yourself? Some people say it's not fair to the champion to have a completely different sort of matchup happen last minute. Other people say, people pay their money for the show. It's a great opportunity for guys to go up and get a big opportunity. What's your take on it?
I think that if you're making Conor McGregor money, which he's making more money than anybody in the UFC, you fight anybody on that day on planet Earth. Doesn't matter. If you're making, let's say, TJ Dillashaw championship money, or maybe even Tyron Woodley money, you kind of think about it because you're not making as much. You got to be smarter. We're not making $30 million, $20 million. We'd be lucky to make $1 million. So you're going to tell me to just pick a fight on a whim for $500,000? Yeah, I get that. But Conor can do it easily because he's making $30 million. He's got $100 million in the bank. So you got to really look at how much money are you getting in your fight and how much money is the other person getting in the fight. And we are prize fighters and our body is on the line. So while you can save the show, and I think as a champion, it's your duty to save the show at times, it depends on the matchup. If I'm facing somebody for $200,000, and he's a lefty, so he's in a southpaw stance, and then in 2 days' notice you try to give me a right-handed wrestler that doesn't throw a punch, like how am I prepared for that? And then you're gonna pay me the same money, or all right, we'll give you 30,000 more. Like, give me a couple mil, and I'll take whoever you put in front of me. So that's where I think things get misconstrued, and you say, oh, this guy's tough and this guy's not. No, this guy's making money and this guy's not. That's the truth of this matter, and our bodies are on the line. Don't forget that. Nobody else's is. Ours.
You said before that Tony and Pettis is the second most intriguing fight for you. I'm going to go out on a limb and assume that the main event is the most intriguing fight for you. What is it about that fight? And correct me if I'm wrong. That is the most intriguing fight for you on this card, right?
The main event?
The main event, Conor and Khabib, right?
Yeah, so what was your question exactly?
Well, my question was going to be, what is the most intriguing part about that fight? What is the thing that interests you more about the main event?
If the most intriguing part to me is to see how Conor adjusts to that level of grappling, or if he even has to. So that's it. That's literally the most interesting part to me. Is his striking as a one-dimensional fighter in that sense, because it's so powerful, he can be one-dimensional and not even have to grapple. Somebody who's 20-something and 0, I don't even know exactly his record now, but it's crazy. And you don't even have to grapple him. You're that good. This guy's never been stopped on a takedown, but you can stop him from even creating a grappling exchange. That's shocking to me. And then if Khabib can get the takedown, has Conor ever felt that level of grappling ever in his life? Ever? We'll find out.
As an analyst, I imagine you would have studied this fight a long time and studied Khabib. What would be the best way to stop Khabib's takedown, especially in the early rounds?
To stop anybody's takedowns in this sport, it's all about punch count, in my personal opinion, because with takedowns and how they come, it's all about the setup. So how you set up the takedown is everything, and depending on how you throw your punches, also defends takedowns. So if I'm throwing all my punches loopy, hooks, and loopy over the top, and I'm not throwing any knees up the middle or any uppercuts, it's much easier for you to get underneath me and get to my legs. But if I'm changing my punch count specifically for somebody who's trying to wrestle me, I can show him certain weapons that deter him from wanting to shoot on me. Things like that.
You spoke about composure before. We saw the press conference. We saw Khabib at the open workouts was kind of having a bit of back and forth with some Conor McGregor fans. How do you sort of analyze his composure going into this fight? And do you think Conor McGregor can have the effect that he's had on a lot of his opponents, where they get a little bit emotional during their fights or get distracted, or the whole spotlight of the fight sometimes distracts them from the game plan?
I think Khabib is one of the intangibles that it doesn't really affect. Excuse me. I think Khabib is one of the intangibles that it doesn't really affect. But there's some things that Conor said that it did affect him. And he's just so good, honestly, and he's so confident in himself and what his abilities are that I honestly don't think that the mind game is as big of a thing as it's been in the past for this particular matchup. However, Conor did say some things that shined a light on Khabib, I think, that people are going to dig into. And that might cause a little uncomfort, but I'm pretty sure Khabib's got all his I's dotted and his T's crossed for some reason.
Well, we appreciate the time, Dom, and we look forward to seeing your work this weekend at UFC 229.
Look forward to being there. Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you so much.